Tonight, crisis in India. A hospital catches on fire, COVID rates and the death toll exploding amid an oxygen and vaccine shortage. With U.S. aid on the way. This as the president hits the road to pitch 3 multi-trillion-dollar plans coming in at some $6 trillion. And
it just says there's something wrong. There may be something wrong with your engine, so take a closer look.
A human check engine light gets under your skin. Plus,
so help me God,
swearing in a new chief for the NASA space program. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. The coronavirus crisis unleashing its fury on India. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Jenna Browder. A devastating situation overseas tonight as the COVID-19 death toll continues to climb in India. Here at home, steps are being taken to prevent the spread. Starting tomorrow, the U.S. will join other countries in banning entry to any flight originating from India. Senior Washington correspondent Tara Merchner is here now with the latest on efforts to slow down this deadly surge.
India is seeing more than 400,000 cases a day now, nearly 4,000 deaths just this weekend. Health experts are now trying to determine whether a new variant might be driving the second wave. Meanwhile, the numbers just keep growing.
It's just impossible to describe what it feels like, seeing my parents on FaceTime and seeing my dad lying on a bed.
That's just one of the many tragic stories as the catastrophe wreaks havoc across the country, with infections reaching about 20 million and counting.
The numbers, whatever it is that you've got out there, are probably being underreported because right now people are fighting even to say goodbye to their dead.
Trying to keep the spread contained, the U.S. joining a growing international list, banning all flights from India. This as family members here try to help relatives escape the carnage. Oxygen is low, hospitals are overrun, and cremation sites are turning away the dead.
They had to turn the ambulance around and drop off his body back to the house.
When I step out on my balcony, the first thing I smell is smoke.
Many say the Indian government is not stepping up. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's party losing a key state in elections over the weekend.
People are just coming together in so many miraculous ways, but they shouldn't have to. They're stepping up because the government isn't.
To make matters worse, India, which has been manufacturing vaccines for the rest of the world, does not have enough for themselves. Meantime, a major development in the push to get Americans vaccinated. The FDA may expand eligibility for Pfizer's vaccine to include 12 to 15-year-olds this week. 12-year-old Caleb Chung was part of Pfizer's trial.
I definitely hope we get back to whatever we would call normal eventually soon.
This weekend in Florida, more than 1,500 people got the shot at 3 high schools, specifically trying to get the vaccine to teens.
We worked with the Florida Department of Health in Orange County to determine which schools they wanted to focus on.
Still, demand is dwindling, with daily shots down 22%. In Texas, latest stats show weekly number of shots plummeting more than 50%. In the quest to get more people vaccinated, some communities are going door to door and to places of worship now, hoping to answer questions to convince any doubters to get the shot. Jenna.
All right, Jenna. All right, Tara Merchner, thank you very much. Meanwhile, the White House Roadshow to is expanding to sell the Biden administration's infrastructure plan to the American people. With the COVID-related American Rescue Plan already in the books, President Biden has proposed $6 trillion in spending since taking office in January. And that amount is making even some Democrats nervous. The CBN White House correspondent Eric Phillips joins us with this story. Eric?
Jenna, yeah, that sticker shock alone is what's making this sales pitch so tricky, even as some of those who are in favor of spending are taking a close look at that price tag. It's why the president and vice president are both on the road taking their message outside of the Beltway. President Biden and Dr. Jill Biden stopped in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia Monday, visiting an elementary school and community college. The Biden infrastructure plan provides 2 years of free community college tuition to all Americans as part of the American Families Initiative.
So for folks at home, I'd like to ask a question. Do we want to give the wealthiest people in America another tax cut? Or do you want to give every high school graduate the ability to earn a community college degree on their way to good paying jobs or on the way to 4 years of school in industries of the future?
Friday, the vice president pushed the more than $2 trillion American Jobs Plan in the Rust Belt of Ohio.
When we are looking at the capacity to grow the economic vitality of communities, including small businesses, and increase the productivity of a workforce, much less expand the workforce, what we know is that the reality is that people, regardless of who they vote for and which party they're registered with, that's what they want. And that's what they want to see their government focus on.
Meanwhile, some moderate Democrats, like Senator Joe Manchin, believe the plan's focus should be more narrow and possibly more traditional.
Well, you're talking about transit, airports, rail systems, the lines as far as our electricity, which is the grid system. All of these things need upgraded. That's infrastructure, what we would call traditional infrastructure. The human infrastructure is something that we're very much concerned about. And when you think about all that we have done in the last year, and plus the COVID bill this year, the American Rescue Plan, an awful lot has been done there, too.
Even former Vice President Pence emerged into the public to condemn the spending.
President Biden has launched an explosion of runaway spending to the tune of $6 trillion and counting. And they're using an infrastructure bill to advance a radical climate change agenda. And the time has come for freedom-loving Americans to stand up to the far-left agenda of the Biden-Harris administration and say enough is enough.
Selling the plan to the American people is one thing, selling it to Congress is another, and the latter will likely prove to be more challenging. Jenna.
All right, Eric Phillips, thank you. A key Republican senator tonight is blasting Biden's spending plans. Wyoming Senator John Barrasso, the leader of the Senate Republican Conference, warning of the dangers of the spending and how it will affect all Americans.
Well, it's the trillions and trillions of dollars of reckless spending. When I look at this is a staggering amount of spending, like someone with a new credit card. And these are for things that we don't necessarily need. We certainly can't afford, but they're going to delight the liberal left of the party. It seems to me that this is a cradle to grave role of government, whether it's paying for child care for everyone, college, free college for everyone, and ultimately someone's going to have to pay for this. It's almost creating an addiction to spending. So it's either massive new debt to China as well as massive taxing, probably the largest tax increase in 50 years. And anybody that says this is going to be on just the 1% or big corporations, I mean, that's just phony math. Americans understand that with this kind of spending and this kind of borrowing and taxing, everyone is going to get hit in their wallet.
Barrasso's remarks are another sign of the difficulties the president faces in getting his agenda through Congress. Barrasso adding that many Democrats are also concerned about the spending, but he does think some sort of compromise on a smaller bill is possible. Well, tonight, divisions within the Republican Party are on full display. This weekend at the Utah GOP convention, Senator Mitt Romney's appearance was met with boos.
I don't hide the fact that I wasn't a fan of our last president's character issues.
The Republican and one-time presidential candidate was one of 7 Republicans in the Senate who voted to convict former President Trump for his role in the January 6th assault on the Capitol. Adding to the fray, Wyoming Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney. Today, she responded to a statement from Trump in which he called the 2020 election the big lie. Cheney in a tweet, "The presidential election was not stolen, and anyone who claims it was is spreading the big lie, turning their back on the rule of law and poisoning our democratic system." And here with us now is our CBN News chief political analyst, David Brody. David, I want to get your thoughts on Liz Cheney's comments, but first, Your thoughts on President Trump's initial statement calling the 2020 election a big lie?
Well, it's classic Trump. You're either with him or against him. And so that's what he's done here. And so now this is where it leaves every single Republican politician in the country. He has said that the 2020 election is the big lie. So the question now for every Republican politician in the country is, do you agree? Do you believe it? And if there is any hesitation or equivocation on that question, then the answer is no, you don't believe it. And therefore, it's a choosing sides. It's a time to choose sides at this point. Are you in with Trump and MAGA Nation, which is the base of the party right now, or are you with, in essence, the other side of the party? And we're not quite sure what that other side is. It might not be full-on Liz Cheney or Mitt Romney, but it's definitely the anti-Trump side of the party. And that's where the Republican Party is right now. So I got to tell you, Jenna, what Donald Trump did today was extremely significant. He's now going to put every Republican on record to say, do you agree with it? Is it the big lie or is it not? That's very important.
Which way do you think a lot of these Republican lawmakers will side? Clearly, Liz Cheney does not agree with the president, and she's been very vocal with her criticism.
It's a great question, Jenna. I got to tell you, I think there's a small minority of Republican officials that will actually say, yes, full stop. It was the big lie, that the 2020 election was the big lie. I think you're going to get not too many that will actually say it. You'll get Marjorie Taylor Greene, you'll get Matt Gaetz, you'll probably get Ted Cruz, you'll get some others. You're going to get those people. But I think a lot of folks will try to have it both ways. You know, in other words, senators, Republican senators and congressmen overall that will say, of course there were problems in the election, and they'll try not to answer it, and then they'll try to go broader. So I think you're going to get equivocation from some folks, but then we're going to find out what Donald Trump does as it relates to possibly primarying some of these folks in terms of endorsing other candidates.
Right. Well, David, I want to ask you about former President Trump and his political calculation here. This kind of rhetoric might appeal to his, populist far-right base, but what about moderates? It seems like this kind of message would really not appeal to most of those people.
Well, you're absolutely right. And so that's been the big question all along. Should it be a Big Tent? Should the Republican Party be a Big Tent? If you hear Liz Cheney and even Kevin McCarthy and others will say, yeah, of course we want more people in the party. But Donald Trump is doubling down on MAGA. And the sources that I'm talking to say that they as in folks close to Donald Trump, believe that MAGA is even bigger now. Now, we'll wait to see if that's true, but they believe that MAGA of 2016 will actually manifest itself even bigger in 2022 and 2024, especially if Donald Trump runs. And that's what they're banking on. We'll see. We just don't know the answer to that right now.
Yeah, we will see. David, while I have you, I want to ask you about President Biden's spending bills. The Washington Post, you might have seen it, ran a story over the weekend that said President Biden may actually be willing to compromise with Republicans on infrastructure. Do you think that's likely?
Well, yes, with an asterisk. And here there are two asterisks. One is time and one is money. In other words, I think there is a chance to get a smaller bill. I think what is it now? Is it 1.8 trillion, 2 trillion? I can't even remember. I get my trillions all confused. But the American Family Plan, let's just say it's 2 trillion roughly. I think there's a chance for a smaller deal. That's one of the asterisks. But the other asterisk, and this is really important, Jenna, is time. Biden and the Democrats are going to let much time go. So if Republicans can't get their act together and settle on something, let's say 1.2, 1.3 trillion. Then they're going to say, see you later. We're not going for $500, $700 billion, something like that. It's going to have to be over 1 trillion. I think there's wiggle room right around that 1 to 2 trillion mark. I can't believe I actually said that. Wiggle room between 1 and 2 trillion.
Yeah. All right, David, we will leave it there. Thanks for joining us. Good to see you this Monday.
Jenna. You too, Jenna.
And coming up, Israel mourns the victims of the early morning stampede Friday that left dozens dead. After this.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Tonight, Israel is mourning the victims of a stampede at a religious festival in the northern part of the country. A message of solidarity was projected onto the walls of Jerusalem's Old City last night in memory of the 45 ultra-Orthodox Jews who were killed on Friday. At least 10 children and teens among the dead. On Saturday, hundreds of Orthodox Jews sang and prayed in a spontaneous memorial for the victims of the country's deadliest civilian disaster. Around 100,000 people attended the festival. Questions still remain about what caused the stampede. Media reports said the crush began when large numbers of people tried to squeeze through a narrow tunnel. Witnesses said the floor became slippery with spilled water and juice, and as some in the crowd slipped, they triggered a chain reaction that forced others to fall too. Well, tourism is a key part of Israel's economy, and it's been devastated by COVID-19. As CBN's Chris Mitchell reports from Tel Aviv, they are trying to turn things around.
In 2019, Israel set a record for tourism when 4.5 million visitors came to the Holy Land. Then the 2020 pandemic slammed the door, causing the number of tourists to plummet more than 80%, resulting in a loss of $8 billion. For more than a year, the COVID pandemic kept tourists from coming to visit Israel, like the city of Tel Aviv behind me. Now Israel's tourism ministry has a plan to reopen Israel to the world.
We are starting the first pilot on the 23rd of May. It will take place for a few weeks, by which we will bring in no more than 20 or more groups of tourists, fully vaccinated with travel agents, so that it can be monitored on one hand, and we can also learn from the lessons and improve the rules and see if things need to be improved.
Then, hopefully about a month later, an unlimited number of groups may be allowed in. By July, it's possible Israel will open its doors to individuals. Still, this timetable could change, since the health ministry recommended the May 23rd date be delayed until the end of June. Israel's reopening comes after an aggressive vaccination campaign that's seen most of the population vaccinated, with COVID rates dropping dramatically.
Israel is now fully open. The attractions, the restaurants, the hotels, our numbers of COVID-19 cases are getting fewer and fewer every day. We're waiting for you to come.
Incoming tourists, however, will have to jump through some hoops. The plan requires all to be fully vaccinated. They must have a negative COVID test before boarding the flight and then take an antibodies test upon arrival. Nearly half of all tourists coming here are Christian, because for many, coming to Israel is like a dream.
I want to say to Christians around the world that Israel is missing you and is looking forward to you coming and seeing all the sacred place and the history.
Yet some Christians in the U.S. remain reluctant to get the vaccine.
Unfortunately, I don't have very optimistic messages for them. Israel is now in a very, very good condition health-wise. It's a very healthy destination, and we cannot put that in danger.
While it's a small start, Israel hopes once again millions of visitors will return to the Holy Land. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Tel Aviv, Jaffa.
Thanks, Chris. And when we come back, why the military is using this human check engine light and why it's getting under some of the skin of some critics.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to cbnnewschannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
A human check engine light. That is what one military doctor is calling a next-generation technology that could ultimately stop a future pandemic. It's actually a tiny hydrogel sensor that sits right under the skin. It was originally developed to help treat diabetes, but for the Department of Defense, it's a way to stop the spread of an infection. CBN National Security Correspondent Caitlin Burke has the story.
Investment in this kind of technology has been going on for years, all with one goal: to protect the soldiers protecting us.
What we do is we say, well, the science is interesting, but we're translating that. We're translating that into application and benefit. And it's something, frankly, I think the Department of Defense does really, really well. We can see science, but we say we have mission. We have a national security mission.
In March of 2020, the USS Theodore Roosevelt made headlines when more than 1,000 sailors on board tested positive for COVID-19. For 2 months, the outbreak kept the ship and its crew of 4,800 sailors from their mission of defending our nation. Dr. Matthew Hepburn says he's devoted his entire career to prevent that from ever happening again.
What we want to do is detect an infection as early as possible, before someone even spreads it to another person, to try to prevent that infection in the first place so that it never happens. But if it does, we detect and treat. And what we also might want to do is then make sure everybody else is protected.
That dream now appears possible thanks to this tiny hydrogel biosensor. Placed under the skin, it measures what's going on at a tissue level. For example, the amount of lactate in your body.
The level of lactate at the tissue level is a really good indicator that someone is starting to get sick. It's one of those things that we see go up pretty early in severe infection called sepsis.
The sensor doesn't identify what infection you might have. It's more of an alert. Hepburn compares it to a check engine light.
Like a check engine light doesn't say there's a problem, you're out of oil or something like that. It just says there's something wrong. There may be something wrong with your engine, So take a closer look. So the idea of the sensor is check engine light goes off, then you need to do some more specific tests to figure out if you have COVID or something else wrong with you.
This next generation technology was invented by Perfusa. The private sector company created it to help treat diabetes. Now, through a partnership with the Department of Defense, the sensor has been developed for a number of other purposes. Besides detecting infection, it can also measure oxygen levels.
So you can think of like a pilot. You'd want to know tissue level hypoxia or low oxygen as an early signal that you're not getting enough oxygen to your tissues.
Currently in clinical trials, this, like all other vaccines and treatments provided by the Department of Defense, must get FDA approval. This one appears to be well on its way to that achievement. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Finally tonight, he traveled to space aboard the Space Shuttle Columbia. And now this former Florida congressman is the 14th administrator for NASA. Bill Nelson was sworn in today on his family Bible by Vice President Kamala Harris.
One of the high honors that anyone could have. I want to say that it's a new day in space.
And Nelson, who represented Florida, was the second sitting member of Congress to go to space, and now he will oversee future missions. His confirmation hearing, he talked a lot about the great opportunity for expansion and said he is excited to undertake it, and we wish him well. Thank you so much for joining us.